Hi, hello. I consent to be recorded. Okay, give me a second. POI preference. Just yourself. I'll take a POI at around the first minute mark and the fifth minute mark. So please just don't badger. I will try to accommodate. Okay, starting my speech in three, two, one. As Rutno, I'm so tired of running away, and I'm so tired of seeing my friends being oppressed in zoos in New York. And I'm so mentally deranged from seeing other animals, knowing that I can just freely live in Madagascar for peacefully, but knowing that there are more animals suffering in New York, I just cannot resist. And I cannot just take this as like just a benefit. And I have a moral obligation to make sure that my friends and my community is protected even if at the cost of so many lives. We think that planning trip to Madagascar is something that's so like hard and difficult. Seeing the context of human being so stigmatizing animals as dirty and like not good and like a lot of mode transportation is super hard to get, especially inside the school. We think that if we can plan a trip to Madagascar, we can simply read a map, use technology like the phone, take pictures, and these probably looks like the penguins of Madagascar using technology to help them like get away and stuff like that. And this is going to be an important issue because we're going to talk about the mechanization in our arguments. We're going to talk about two things. One, four reasons why staying in New York and doing this resistance is so justified. Second, why it's comparatively much more strategic to just stay and do the resistance. One, justification. Four reasons why. One, we need to protect our dignity as an animal that was already taken with our homes taken away at the beginning, right? Like us as penguins, like penguins being captured from Antarctica and all of those things. New York is our last home because it is impossible for us to literally fly to Antarctica or go back to our home in Indonesia in a tropical country. So this sewer, even if it's super bad, it's our last home, and we cannot just like run away knowing that our dignity is taken away, and other animals are experiencing the same things. Second, we don't want to subside to oppression and colonialism by running, knowing that there's no changes at all in status quo. We think that our resources right now, the animals that are with Ratno, is highly intelligent animals with different skill sets. We think we have the power to actually go against oppression done by human being on colonialism to our homes by making sabotaging the zoo and boycotting zoo, ensuring that nobody wants to go there anymore. We think this is important justification why it's really important to stay. Third, a lot of our species are endangered in our ecosystem. If we go to Madagascar and we ignore all the animals in all country in the US, we are ignoring the endangerment of ecosystem. We are ignoring the endangerment of our species. Why is it so important, right? Because it is important for us to survive and reproduce, ensuring that we have future animals so that we can have a good ecosystem, a good environment. So if one shark dies or if one a predator dies, it's gonna literally destroy the lower parts of the food chain. And if we don't want that to happen as animals, because that means it's also gonna endanger us, especially if we are in the lower part of food chain. Fourth, even if we're gonna peacefully live in a happy place as the 1% that's free from zoo oppression, we are gonna be haunted by the knowledge that other animals are suffering at our own hands. Why? Because we could have helped them left, knowing that we precisely have the ability and a lot of um, animal resources to help us, and the fact that we are able to plan a getaway to Madagascar, we have the brain to actually make plans to actually help these animals. But why that is gonna work, right? Second issue. Three reasons why going to Madagascar is true not worth it. One is super costly. We need to prepare food for months of travel. It's really hard because we have to accommodate a lot of animals in our squad. Second, mode of transportation is really confusing. Maybe if you see the Madagascar movie, you built a really, really bad plane that is not good for your health. You literally can die from falling from the plane. If you can just get away with a plane made human and like try to get into the security system, one is really hard. Even human with like a better brain cannot do that. Even if they can do that, they will be caught. Even if they can do that and they got caught, there's a increased security system. So it's just super, super hard. But lastly, the risk other than all of those things is really, really big. Not just getting caught, but getting seen by human and getting caught by what is it called? Those people that capture wild animals and send them to zoo. Basically evil people. We don't want to be caught by these people. It's really hard. We cannot just use black glasses or use boxes because they will notice moving boxes. We are like super attention seeking animal because we have very unique shapes. Literally, we have a zebra with us. So it's just really, really hard for us to actually get away from human attention. It's really hard for us to be successfully peaceful in Madagascar, even if the impact's really, really good. In comparison, in our side, resistance is much better, but before that, POIs, going once, going twice. No. The resources that you need to resistance already there. The sewer system is highly connected in New York because it's I don't know, it's the US, they have really good sewer system, I think. And they have easy access to other zoos because like there's places to for you to go up in the zoos. The animals in the zoos that are going to be captured by us and helped by us is gonna be supportive because they are tired of the suffering in the zoos, like being forced to perform, given awful diet, living in a human-made unnatural habitats. So it's gonna be more likely they're gonna be happy that they are away from all of those things and likeness to get out all of those of out of those prisons. And more humans are gonna be supportive of us in New York. Why? Because there's like animal rights activists doing this campaign and whatnot. We, as Ratno and like our squad, can strategize to free all these animals by influencing human by taking pictures of the actual actions of human does in zoo, like forcing elephants by torturing them to ensure they can perform, torturing other animals for they to be entertaining to human and post that on social media because we can, and we create meaningful change not just to ourselves because we are able to feel super empowered knowing that we are able to make the most small significant change to ensure that people hate zoo and stop coming to zoo and people don't see the truth that zoo is really, really damaging to a lot of animals. We also liberate zoos across the country, freeing animals and recruiting them in our underground work. This means we can use them to sabotage animal trading, sabotage zoos that are highly, highly damaging to other animals. We think the likeliness of this is already clear in the beginning. We think this is a huge impact that we can create, easier than moving away to Madagascar. We think that the justification to do this already enough to explain why this action is much more preferable than moving to Madagascar. Proud to propose.
Okay, thank you. To open the case of opening opposition, let's call upon leader of opposition. You are up next.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Wait, I'm gonna set up my timer. I'm starting my PI preferred just unmute yourself, but I'm not sure to take one. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The PM is full of contradictory, right? When they say that they have to protect their dignity as animals because you cannot go back to your home because New York is our last hope and we cannot go to Antarctica because we don't have the resources. And then the next layer that they say is that, oh look, we are super intelligent penguins that literally can steal anything and can go to any car and then we can go saving every single people in New York. So what do you want? A good resources and intelligent animals, or a dumb animals that cannot go to Madagascar and cannot go back to Antarctica at all? I think you cannot take these two stances, right? But secondly, when they also talk to us that going to Madagascar is super costly because it's super hard, but then they say that because we have zebra that is so like unique and people will see us. Well, if you are in New York, which is the most populated like cities, and then you are going to start underground movement with that zebra also. So this is kind of contradictory, right? So what do you want actually? Do you want to frame as we have the resources, or do you want to frame as we don't have the resources? So we think talking about the practicality will and will only be will only be contradictory under opening government. But secondly, when they told us that the only argument is that, oh, it's important for us that we are responsible for these kind of animals. We are very sorry to see they are being tortured and so on and so forth. I think this will be directly engaged to my argument. We think why then is principally we don't have to care to these people. Number one, as a leader, we think you are trusted with your companion, which means that these companions are those who save you and make you able to, escape from the prison, from the zoo itself. Which means the family that you need to protect are not those who you do not even know in other zoos, but people that already followed you, people that already sacrifice your time in order to, escape from the zoo and succeed to go back to Antarctica or Madagascar, because that's their main goal of why then they go to the zoo. Why then in the end of the day they want to go back to the zoo, right? Because if their intention in the very first place is just to save this, like the old zoo, why then they bother escaping in the very first place? But second of all, I think you're not responsible to other zoos. Why? Because they are not the people that help you escape, and you might not even know their intention. It can be that your intention is you feel like the zoo is exploiting, and you have to save yourself. But some other animals might not think like it. For example, the kukang that like to show his ass, I forget his name, but he likes being in the zoo. He likes being watched by lots of people and dancing his ass, for example. So this means that not all animals in the zoo feeling the same as you. Not all animals want to be saved as later want to be safe as you are, right? So this is why we think we're not responsible at all to others. Second, when we're talking about the responsibility of the leader, your priority was not some stranger coming from other things, but the people that save you, the people that already burn out some time to escape, make you able to escape, right? But secondly, when they also talk about the good ecosystem, for example, we think this is also very funny, right? Because if you understand how the ecosystem works, then just let them go back to their own mainland, let them breed with their wives and family, and let them just have a good ecosystem in the Madagascar, for example. If you force them to literally save everyone in this kind of zoo, it will take a long time. That's number one. You cannot take the base case saying that, oh, we are super intelligent, everything will go smooth in one day we are going to save every single zoo. You gotta do that. You gotta do that. So the harm is that they are going to take a long time. What's the problem with the time sensitivity is that the moment when you let these kind of various animals to just focusing on only saving other zoos instead of breeding, instead of making sure that their homeland can survive, for example, you're going to you're going to worse the ecosystem anyway, right? So we do not understand what is the idea of keeping animals in the zoo and suddenly they are and saving from the zoo and suddenly the ecosystem become good. I think you cannot take this argument from granted. You need to give me the process analysis. But firstly, but before that, yes.
Just because an attention-seeking skunk likes to show his ass, it does not subside for a good analysis. We told you 3 reasons why animals will want to join us: awful treatments, awful food, and awful man-made habitats.
We think the reason of why they told us that there are 2 reasons that animals will likely to join us. The problem is that the technicalities, they say to us that we are super intelligent, we can do anything, we can fight humans and so on and so forth. But they never told you once then you already saved this, then what you are going to do, right? We don't understand what's their point. Also, they cannot say that, oh, people, okay, they say that these animals are likely to join you. But the problem with this analysis is that you rely on uncertainty because you do not know the characteristic of every single animals inside of this. The fact that there are those who can that become example, which means that their 3 layer of analysis are not sufficient enough because this is not based on the reality that happened. Because not every single animals like to be like to be back in, I don't know, like to be back like to save other people. For example, okay, sure, they might join you in order for them to be able to be escaped, but it doesn't guarantee that they will join you to waste their time to help the others, right? Because we think that inherently animals also have their own instinct. They also have their instinct to continue their life. They also have their instinct to continue their families, to help their families. We think they are not only talking about saving other people. This is a blatantly blunt characterization, right? And we cannot take this from OG. But my second argument is going to talk about the strategic, right? Why this is strategic? We think mass resistance is hard under 3 reasons. Number one, we already going underground, which means that it will take a long time. During that long time, there will be a process harms that I already explained before. There will be time consumed. There will be, you are going to get older as an animals. You are going to, like missing the productive breed of your era, for example. Secondly, we think the amount of escaped animals are also very, like only in a small amount. And New York is a very diverse city, which means that the effort that you need to bring is very high. And that's why I think the likelihood for these kind of, small amount of animals to be able to save the whole New York is less likely to happen. But lastly, we think you don't have even capital, right? You have to rob, you have to run, just like the movie shows you, which means you are very prone to getting caught by the animal catcher. The problem when one of you getting caught by the animal catcher is that you care to other to your to your fellow animals that already helped you escape, which means you're going to shift your focus to save this one animal that already being captured, for example. So that's why I think the moment when you try to this mass resistance, there will be so many barriers that happening, and that's why you, even if you can do mass resistance, it's not your interest in the end of the day. So this is why we think it's better under our side when we go back, because we are going to be more peaceful. We can breathe more, so that we make sure that the existence of your race and your family exists, as this is the most basic thing and instinct as animal. But even if just they care, we think they should be, the degree of careness should be more given to the family instead of the people nowhere or animal nowhere that you do not even know. We're very proud to oppose.
To open the case of closing government, let's call upon member of GOV. Time is
Please give me a second.
okay.
I give my consent to be recorded. Hi everyone, my name is Keiko, and for this speech, I will take verbal POIs. Okay. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, in my speech, I'm going to prove to you why the opening opposition case has fallen, and later on I will show to you why closing government wins against opening government and what is our exclusivity, right? But few point rebuttals towards the deputy leader of opposition, right? They say that again on the moral obligation, that this is not something that the leader should focus on, that they should actually focus on their companions who have helped them escape from the zoo, for example. Firstly, we need to understand the definition of like underground resistance movement, right? This means that actually their companions, the group, they have more agenda, a bigger agenda than themselves to actually save themselves. It's called actually an underground resistance movement. They have more compassion and caring to see that, okay, the future of animals needs to be safe. It's not just about how we can actually run away to Madagascar, right? And secondly, we think that the leader, Retno here, because he has given the position as the leader, we think that he is actually smart. He will actually think of a strategy that will not jeopardize the companion, while also the leader. He will think they're not as clumsy as opening opposition like to state, right? But for example, even if there are certain animals that do not want to join the resistance, we think that is fine. We can just leave them, right? But secondly, they also talk about how it's actually better for let them go to run to Madagascar so they can be with their family. We think that firstly, it is actually hard for them to reproduce even though they're due to distress, and that's why most of them go extinct. But when they have the guilt of like leaving their fellow friends, the one who has been with them to the zoo since the beginning, who actually have witnessed a lot of like indecencies and actually like exploitation from human, we think that they will not live a happy life like opposition try to claim. They will not live like a happily ever after, right? And even if they can actually later on in a new ecosystem try to reproduce, then we think that at the end of the day, the child will not be able to adapt to the wildlife, and as well this will be an unending cycle, right? But secondly, also on the point of opening opposition, when they try to argue that when they try to argue that this is fine, we think that the social movement repetition, while you go to Madagascar, you can only like finish it once. We think that this is okay, and I will respond to this why, even if at the end of the day this movement fails, it will still be justified, why the trade-off will still be okay, right? But secondly, we think that it is actually important to actually also, secondly, they try to argue that animal activists will actually turn back their backs on them. I think it is important for us to characterize and divide the humans into spectrums, right? Firstly, there are bad humans that they're talking about, but and again, there are already laws in the status quo, right? This against illegal hunters and animal abusers. We think that status quo is already enough, and also there's a lot of like campaigns, NGOs, and organizations that is defending the animals, right? But we think that at the end of the day, this is not enough, and this is why we think having a movement at this momentum will benefit the animals more, right? But secondly, there will also be like good humans who will empathize, will help. And the fact that people already don't agree on the concept of zoos and aquariums shows that they don't view animals as their enemies, but as someone who they need to protect. Because again, maybe their humans has the responsibility of doing that as being the more intelligent being, right? But secondly, we think that this good human will not only help the resistance, but also help the transition to Madagascar at the end of the day, which is again what closing argument government like to distinct from opening government is at the end of the day of this movement, we want them to be able to actually reach Madagascar, right? For example, by giving food, giving transportation, giving security measures to protect them from other unfortunately evil or mean human, right? But secondly, we think that the human zoo oppression is actually worse than the wildlife in Madagascar, right? We think that like zoos right now sedate the animals to take photo, they cut the teeth out in snake, and if they don't already, if the animal is no longer popular, then they don't really actually care about it. Either they're just gonna let the animal like rot in the cages, or actually going to be released in really, really bad physical condition that will not make them survive in the wildlife, right? So here in this choice, you literally cannot escape. What you can do is actually fight, actually like grow a strong movement, and also again work together with humans, right? And again, we would like to clarify that we would like to strengthen the point that if you just run away once in Madagascar, then nothing is going to change. We need progress, and if you care actually about the future and preservation of further animals, or children's or family of the animals, then there are sorry, I think I got cut off. Can the timer stop for a second? I need to like reposition myself.
Okay.
What was the last statement that I talked about?
If you just run away, nothing is going to change.
Okay, thank you so much. And can I have like the timestamp?
4 menit 39 detik.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I will continue my speech now. Now, moving on to our argumentation, right? And why we think that openings government argument is not mutually exclusive, and there's actually like a lot of gaps to be filled, right? They say that firstly, that these animals will actually be caught by their physical appearance is obvious. While in mass resistance movement, you can be caught as well. And we explained it to you why even in this case, later on, the trade-off, it's still working, making our case one step more advanced, right? But furthermore, opening government did not make it clear on what they want to do, right? Do they want to actually like reach Madagascar at the end of the day? What will happen when they decided to go with this mass resistance movement, right? In closing government, we're going to explain to you the step-by-step of how the long-term benefit will be achieved, right? So what is our new contribution and why is it important? On a more principle level, like I've talked about, we will talk about the purpose of this movement and why as the leader, we must continue the resistance movement. This is different from opening government approach, which is more practical, but this point is more important because it takes about the inherent obligation, regardless of the practicality, regardless of the success or failure, as a leader and a part of the resistance movement, right? Firstly, understand that you used to be part of the zoo. The animals who are still inside the zoo is your friends, people who will fight with you, who help you and give you the strength when you are abused in the zoo, and you owe it to them again to help them now that you have the upper hand, right? And secondly, this group is formed because your members, like I've mentioned before in my rebuttal, believe in this cause, right? They might have lost a parent or a friend because of the zoo oppression, and maybe they will join this movement because they want to redeem their guilt, right? So I don't think that just getting to safe haven or Madagascar would actually be enough from them, because that is not the reason why this movement starts in the beginning, right? We think that there's like a miss in from the opening debate talking about this. But secondly, they need your support, Retno, as the leader to give strength to go on, rather than you having backlash on them and only focus on your like little group, right? Also understand it's very able for you to turn your back on this cause just because it's convenient for you and betraying everyone. This means that regardless of the outcome and practicality, regardless of feasibility, you owe it to the other animals and members for you to fight because they're constanta to join you in the first place. Secondly, I will talk about your worst case scenario and trade off if it fails, right? Because at least you and your team can be at peace with your benevolent decision to fight for your friends. And even if you get caught, rather than constant mental guilt from you not trying to fight for your friends, which may make you go crazy and not cannot have peace either, you can actually justify, okay, I've tried, I do my best, and let the resistance move on, and we hope for progress. And even if when you're caught, put in a cage, and photos of you looking sad and cage spread in newspaper, this will encourage empathy from people. Like I mentioned before, like human characterization, it will spark discourse among animal rights activists and general community, right? And also there will be even celebrities at the end of the day who want to speak up on this, no matter to get publicity. Why is this their issue? Is there something wrong with the zoo? Why is the animals are running away and so forth, right? And secondly, there will also be political leaders who want to bring this because it's in their campaign to touch more layer of society, right? So we think that in this right momentum, it is actually more beneficial for the animals for the long-term benefit to actually later on maybe get support and can reach their French destination to Madagascar, right? For us, the trade-off is worthy because it gives us a sense of fulfillment and achievement rather than feeling guilt for the rest of their life. And this is why I believe closing government has won the debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. To open the case of closing opposition, let's call upon member of OP. You are up next. Member of opposition.
I'm sorry, I'm audible?
Yes.
Okay. Wait. Okay, I'm going to start my speech. Hello, I'm audible. Tes. Soalnya ini agak hujan di sini.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. Sip. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Under CO, the only way for you to be able to do a massive incorporation, the only way for you to do so is only by completely, by massively trying to accumulating the power and having the ability to do it once. But at the moment you do it consciously and slowly, most likely you are not going to get the efficacy of benefit of this mass incorporation. So what I'm going to tell you in this speech, right? I'm going to tell you 3 things. Firstly, in the comparative of efficacy, I'm going to tell you 2 analyses as to why we are going to be more effective. Secondly, why then the independent impact regarding the principle should be not be talking in this debate. And thirdly, what exactly the independent impact, why at the moment you choose to go into Madagascar, the ability for you to accumulate a massive power in the way that you need to do math and calculations could only be happen throughout this alternative. So firstly, let's talk about comparative efficacy. Before I think I'm going to give this analysis in 2 folds. Firstly, in terms of the preparation, and second in terms of firstly in terms of the preparation, second is in terms of the strategy. Because I think opening bench, we're talking about the efficiency of this, still deadlock upon the metrics of the resources. Note that the resources are still going to happen in both sides of the house. So they need to tell you what then the specificity that are going to most likely becoming the tipping point when we talk about the efficiency, right? So before that, I'm going to tell you 3 unique characteristics of this planning, right? Firstly, I think it should be noted, like through the info slide, this plan is something that is alternative and not fully informed like what happened in Madagascar, means that there still need a lot of process of discussion for you then to arrive to a complete proposal as to why that you need to exactly doing this mass resistance, right? But secondly, I think like the process of you then accommodating and communicating within this animal are more likely based upon the city centralized animal approach rather than the wild animal approach. And I'm going to tell you what the reference of this. And thirdly, I think that it should also be noted that just because they are sentient, it doesn't mean they have the ability to telepathy, right? Means that the process of you still need to have communications, still need to have some physical presence of direct communication. So firstly, regarding the preparation, so I think that the preparations are more likely are not going to result into a good proposal for you than to be able to effectively create a mass resistance. Because of Because I think the most likely the process of discussion are most likely are going to be deadlocked. Why it is so? Because of two reasons. Firstly, the majority voting power already agreed and persuaded within going into this Madagascar. So I think like the only way for you then as this leader to exactly able to convey, you need to give a more inherent persuasions in the process. I think it is something that needs a lot of time, right? But secondly, because when we talk about the complicated the complicated proposal that we're going to have, talking about zoo liberation, talking about this thing is something is more complicated, right? Because of three reasons. Because firstly, you need to approach every zoo institution in a way that you need to make a different proposal for you then to be able to strategize your strategy. But secondly, because the way you deliver the communications are also going to be different because every zoo has a different moral intuition in the way that they need to believe within this kind of oppression happen within this kind of belief, right? But why at the moment when you suddenly choose to revoke this kind of planning and suddenly going into a complete mass incarcerations, you are going to make the situation is even worse, right? Because of firstly, because you are most likely are going to have the planning is partial. What is the impact? And this impact is going to connect it within the principle that come from opening government and closing government regarding the idea of the principles of the inherent obligation. Because I think the only way for you then to be able within the inherent obligation, you need to also have a balancing principle of the solution for you then to be able to do so. Because the thing simple is that you cannot just suddenly help the people in the in the street if you know that you don't have any equipment. The most likely scenario that you are going to use is that you are going to call the police or at least trying to communicate within the people. But at the moment you suddenly have this substantial partial proposal, you are most likely are going to be more having a very left different proposal. It is not perfect. I think it is firstly shows to you that their principal obligation is more even harmful under their side house in where you at some relative principle you ignore this individual's necessity for them to exactly able them to to completely make them to have a defense. Because what is the impact at the moment it is not going to what the impact at the moment it is not going to be effective, right? I think the most likely impact is that these people are going to be antagonized, right? What opening of position means that you are going to cut off even a massive consequence of this principle morality because of your self-interest choices that you need to take. But secondly, I think the characteristic of the animal power is more likely are going to be low when you take this mass liberation in a way that you need to constantly focusing upon the people that are an animal. They are not habituated within going into hunting. They are not habituated to go into this kind of thing in a way that this something is important for you then to be able to suddenly change the massive, the zookeepers institution that are very secure in the process. They have the ability to honestly antagonize and capitalize this thing, right? But the comparative is that under our side house, we are at the moment to suddenly go into the wild power. At least we have the ability to talk within these people and trying to transfer the knowledge of how then you are able to give it into another different institution of the zoo when there's like a zoo that is escaping. I think there is something that is more important, right? But secondly, let's talk about in terms of the strategy, right? I think there is okay. I'm going to analyze firstly the different step of strategy when you choose to go into zoo, when you choose to go into Madagascar, and when you choose to go into what is called resistance movement. I think the difference, I think when you go into Madagascar, there is two steps. Firstly, you are just need to go escape and suddenly go into transportation. But when you suddenly choose to go mass resistance movement, you need to have one different step. That is first, you need to firstly escape. Secondly, you need to break other zoo security so that you are able to physically communicate with these people. And thirdly, you need to consciously able then to defend yourself from the identification of these people. Why this step is important? Because we are going to mechanize OO's argumentation regarding the continuous concept of activisms. Because we say at the moment you always consciously trying to identify, trying to always becoming involved within this security. The most likely scenario that we are going to have that these people are most likely are going to identify you means that the ability for you then to be gotten, and then you are not you are done you're and then you as a leader are being are being catch is more likely are going to happen, right? In the way that they have the ability to always consciously to do so. But even if that scenario is very unlikely, at least this zoo security are more likely are going to increase the security that you are going to have in a way that they see that there is a fundamental potential people that are being seen as something that is so different, that is being seen as potential threat for this kind of zoo security, right? But why this important? This analysis is important because it shows to you at the moment you choose to go to slowly progress, the accumulation of power for the antagonism for other oppositions are most likely are going to be created. But why the only way for you then to be able to do mass incarceration are going are only able to go by going to Madagascar, because firstly you have the ability to do massive incalculation of power in the way that you need to do so, but secondly, regardless of that, at least you have the ability then not to make your another animal being catched in the process. I think this is something also shows to you that there is some principle that you could still do at the moment you choose to go into Madagascar. Proud to oppose.
Okay, thank you for member of opposition. To close the case of closing government, let's call upon government whip. Time is yours.
Thank you. I will arrange my paper. Please give me a moment. Okay. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, we think that opening debate is very tight on the practicality, right? That is why there are so many deadlocks on whether or not they're obvious enough they will get caught when doing the mass resistance or get caught when they're escaping to Madagascar, right? This creates a mutually exclusive harm. And then they talk whether or not Madagascar would be a better option than the zoo. They talk about security. They talk about whether or not there will be food, they will be protected from the predators, so on and so forth, right? These are all very, very practical debate. And that is why it is a deadlock on so many ends, because not only did the team only talks about the practicality, but they've never talked about the trade-off in which in both sides, what if the practicality fails? What if their plan A fails, right? So what then? This is where closing government came in and told you about why principally, regardless of the outcome, regardless of the practicality debated on the opening government, our principle is more important, right? Why inherently, principally, you have the moral obligation to do so regardless of calculations of outcomes, right? But secondly, we also told you, we will also talk to you on a practical level how it would be better under our side if we continue to actually, do the mass resistance movement, and when everyone is liberated, and then we can go to Madagascar. These are the exclusive contributions of closing government. Furthermore, what is lacking on closing opposition? Like closing opposition never responded to our arguments, talking in the principle level why it is the moral obligation, right? They have never talked about why Madagascar is already safe now, why it wouldn't be better if we wait on the other side of the house until we have the influence of celebrities and politicians, for example, to be able to make policies that make Madagascar a protected sanctuary, for example, right? These are the kind of things that can only happen on the other side of the house. Now, moving on, right, to what my first speaker has contributed in this debate and what closing government has to offer. Firstly, we told you that on a principle level why it is okay for them to do this regardless of the result. We told you about the sentiment to their friends, right? The solidarity, owing it to the people who supported you when you were abused back then in the zoo, right? We also talk about how you owe it to this mass resistance movement in which all the members only join because they believe they can finally get justice for their parents in the zoo, for example, because they want to liberate their brothers and sisters from the zoo, right? These people join on an emotional and sentimental values. They do not care about the practical outcome. They only care about trying their best to save their friends, to save their relatives, to save their family, to save other animals, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why as a leader, you have to serve this purpose, right? You cannot go the other way when it is inconvenient for you. And that is why our principal argument is very, very important, right? Because understand that these members join not on practicality, they join because of the principality, right? But secondly, we also talk to you about how on a practical level, this would also ignite the attention of celebrity who wants to get more publication and political figures who wants to reach out to the growing mass of animal activists, right? Understand that these are the people who can speak up and push for the protection of Madagascar, who can make Madagascar a protected sanctuary, giving very harsh punishment, for example, hunters, right? These are people who can make Madagascar a better living space, right? A space that is protected, a space that is fit and comfortable for the human, that will also have the animal rights activist agenda hence ensuring that the welfare of the animal is protected, right? Understand that without the push of these politicians, without the push of the celebrity, it is true, ladies and gentlemen, Madagascar might not be the safest place. It might not be the most comfortable place. And that is why we need this influential human to be able to back us up. And that would only happen under our side of the house. And that is why closing government is the most important side in this particular debate. But moving on, right? Let's give some response to closing opposition. They say that the majority vote that we cannot revoke all the planning about wanting to go to Madagascar because majority voting power already do so. No, right? We think they do not. That is precisely why they asked to the leader. They're in a 50-50 condition. They're confused on which one to choose. And as a leader, you have to be loyal to the original means and goals of this particular organization, like I told you before. But secondly, why is it okay to revoke planning, right? Because like we told you, the planning is not currently perfect, right? And the moment you actually try to harm, the moment you actually force to still bring them to Madagascar right now, when the condition is not most safe, when there might be hunters there that is following you, so on and so forth, that is the moment you are not a responsible leader, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why under closing government, we want to wait. Let's just wait, leave with all the other animals, and then after we get all the supports, after we get the publications because of the photo op, so on and so forth, that is the moment it is safe for us to go to Madagascar, and it is safe for us to actually stay there. That is what we want under our side of the house, right? Understand that we will also get this kind of sympathy by, for example, approaching to the humans and, for example, showing ourselves there. And even if we got caught, pictures of us getting caught can actually revoke the sympathy of the humans, right? And when they want to say about how we would be antagonized, no, right? Because firstly, what we are doing is not an active harm or an active attack to another party, right? What we're doing is a defense mechanism towards decades and centuries of subjugations in zoos, right? This would always raise the sympathy of people. That is why people sympathize with minority group who are subjugated, right? Nobody blamed Black people, for example, doing Black Lives movements, ladies and gentlemen. They actually supported it because they know these people have been subjugated for far too long. Hence, the same with animals, right? Especially when there is the growing number of pet owners these days, who also correlates to the suffering of other animals, right? This is why we can so very reach so many people under our side of the house. But secondly, right, the moment the animal escape, that shows to the public that there is something exceptionally wrong with the public zoo, right? That other animals wanted to escape. That shows, that is a signal to the public that the zoo is not treating them well. There is something so wrong that the animal have no other choice left but to escape, right? We think that if the animals just straightly go to Madagascar, all the progress, all the animal rights activities movement, all the momentum that we have now will be gone, right? The voice will die down. This is not something that comes twice in a century, for example. We don't know what is the trend in the next decade, right? And that is why while the momentum is here, we should seize it, we should take it, and we should liberate the other animals. But lastly, right, if they want to talk about practicality, whether or not you can break into the zoo and defend yourself, right? Firstly, we think that we have the resource for this, right? Because this will be well planned. And as a wise owl, you will also want to take longer time if necessary to wait for the right momentum, to wait for the right inners. You will learn first about the securities. You will learn first about how many humans are there, right? And understand, animal has certain advantage compared to human, right? They have a certain unique body structure, and then they can also, like, for example, run in a speed that is faster than human. For the tiger, for the owl, they can fly, ladies and gentlemen. They have this kind of advantages that they can use against the human guard, for example, right? The team composition is pretty diverse, and this is where it can be used to your advantage combined with proper planning. All of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we think that this grand final debate should go to closing government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. To close the debate in general, let's call upon opposition whip. You are up next.
Wait a second, I will set my timer. Yeah, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So what the CG trying to say with this, the CG are actually just saying about inherent obligation about the animals, because as the member already established that inherent obligation and only principle if you have a solution for the problem which is the CG don't have. And we already proved that there is an imbalance in solution in the way that the planning is partial. And and to make something work, we have to accumulate the power. And why are going to the Madagascar give you the ability to accumulate the power more efficient. Why? Because the first animal are already tired and ready, eager to go, and it is up to in the motion. It is said that it is up to us on the final stage, mean that the plan and the animal's determination are already in place, and the momentum are already already happening right now, and it's only up to us for the final say. And going to Madagascar will eventually will give us more support because we give the animals direct action from their promise, like something human, like something instant. And we are already sharing common intuition and moral value among the animals that are more willing to go. And also the solution that is provided by the government are not really significant, because even though with the boycott or any action from the animal activists are, even though they are still are not really important. Why? Because like there is now the fact that they are zoo are still exist, and being one of the top favorite vacation destination while in holiday is the proof that the boycott and the activism movement are failing. And the citizens, the celebrity fame or the politician will help the movement. But it is currently not, because they are actually really only at sometimes or at a particular time, and it is not, they are not actually care about the animals movement, but they are only there for the fame and for want to like for the likes and views. And the government doesn't really give us reasonable proof of why, even though the animal activity exists, it is going to impact us efficiently. And in the status quo, there is still a lot of cases where the less popular zoo are really thriving to open, because like the animals are really hungry, and the movement don't really save them from that situation, because the movement itself is already a problem. The movement lack of power and an influence in the society, and it is also highly unlikely to change, because this activist actually does not provide a better solution for the profit oriented zoo, and the zoo only care about the profit they get from the visitor, how they gonna increase the visitor each year. And going to my rebuttal, that it is animal-led. The first one is like about animal-later, that it is animal-later to survive and produce more children while maintaining our natural characteristic. And in status quo, in zoo, the animals actually have zero power or anything, and everything are being controlled by the zoo, which is actually not good at all, because the first, we are the sentient animals, and as a sentient being, we have a free will. And the second one, the zoo are actually making us really dependent on them. And if this continue on the long run, it will affect really badly on us and for our evolution and adaptation in the long term. For example, in the extreme cases, but look what happened to the cat. Cat used to be this wild animals who can hunt on their own, and can survive in the wild by themselves. But right now cats are actually a pet that constantly depends on human food to eat, or like human to adopt and take care of them, or they are gonna die in the road, something like that. And actually in the government side, the message in seaward actually give us more suffering in life, because like imagine the food and the water in the seaward are really dirty, and it is really untainted and polluted, and living inside a dirty environment most likely will just make us sick and probably die, because we actually cannot heal or give medicine to ourselves. And this is this is a shame, because that this probably happened before even the movement momentum are going to approach, and this is the fate are much worse in rather than going to Madagascar or going to zoo. Also, I want to get to my point. Why straight up to Madagascar is more effective, because like the first one, you don't really need a lot of coordination. Like it is more easier to relate a certain short message rather than a constant campaign about mass resistance. You just for example, you can just say, we are going to Madagascar tomorrow. We are going to Madagascar today. It is, it's more easy to being accepted by the another animals. Also, in the current status quo, the animals are actually living in the cage, in the zoo, in the spirit place, which is the already limit capability of information spread that are already limited. Also, I want to go to explain why going back to Madagascar, our natural habitat is really the best choice for us, because the first one is the urgency that we have in end. We are already tired by the abuse that humans do to the animals, and so on, so on. Also, the second one is that the zoo are actually destroying our behavior adaptation in nature, and staying at zoo, even though we are safe from extinction, we are still lost this part of ourselves. And the behavior that can make us live and survive in the wild. And we actually, if they stay at the zoo, the animals are getting more dependent on the human to take care of us to stay alive, because we cannot really know how to survive in the nature. And if we go to Madagascar now, at least we can minimize the damage in this part. Also, the government said that we grow up in the zoo, most likely grow up in the zoo and spend most of our time in the zoo. We can hunt or do shit, because it is wrong, because we are still have our instinct. One of them is like the danger sense. It is something that even human have. It is our natural defense system that exists when we were born. Also, why going to Madagascar actually, saving a lot of animals rather than mass resistance can actually do. Because when we are going to Madagascar, we can, educate the animals there about the human trap to catch animal, and so the animals can eventually can learn to adapt to avoid the trap, and preventing more animals going into the cycle of abuse in the zoo. This is some kind of more meaningful manifestation of good action that is really caused by what government so-called guilt of leaving our friends behind. And we are actually explaining the abuse in the zoo, which is increasing our credibility and gaining other local animal trust that they are going to zoo that are actually not good at all, like the human promise. That is enough to deter animals that previously want to go to zoo willingly to not to go. That is for my speech. Proud to oppose.
Okay, thank you for presenting really great debate. Obviously, this is silent round. Please wait for further announcement from the committee regarding the